More trumpeter woes this week. Welcome to Model Kit Stuff and welcome to this week's Table Talk. Yes, hello everybody, welcome to Model Kit Stuff and welcome to Table Talk Day. We've been back on the plastic largely this week, and that means back on the Scharnhorst, and that means, more modelling pain. I've got to say, Trumpeter have done a really poor job of that model. But yeah, we've got some interesting things to talk about today. Some good, some not so good. But yeah, quite a bit to go through. So, where to begin? Well, as always, a big welcome to all of my subscribers, especially if you're new subscribers. The number of new subscribers dropped again this week. The sun is out, people are out busy. It's all to be expected, but it's fallen off a cliff. Although the videos are still doing pretty much on par. So what I'm finding is those people that are invested in, say, the Sherborne build are still watching the videos. But new people finding the channel is dropping off, or people subscribing to the channel, I should say, is dropping off. And that's just because there's less people in YouTube watching, more people are out doing, and that happens every year. Fortunately, in the UK, the sunshine window is really quite small, so as soon as the schools go back, first couple of days of September, we start seeing people relaxing back into their hobby groove again, and that'll go back up. So we've got three to 4 months to ride the slump. But videos have been doing really well. The Sherborne videos continue to do really well. As you know from last week, we finished Sherborne and so we have moved on. But you're still catching up with those videos. And we're now in the rigging phase on those videos. So that was actually the most difficult part for me to film, because I've not really had to film rigging before. And I very quickly realised that my camera sees right past the thin lines of thread and views on the background. So even when you manually focus it, it doesn't work, because as soon as you start moving your hands or something, it starts tracking that instead. So I've had to come up with some ingenious ways of blanking out the background so it stays focused on the foreground. So a learning curve for me, something new on the filming front, and you're just starting to see that. So in the video that came out last week, you'll have seen bits of cardboard and stuff behind it. That's me going through the process of learning how I'm going to do that. So, where to begin this week? Well, I think I want to start with something that I need to get off my chest, and then we'll crack on with the more interesting stuff. So, I had a really disappointing email this week from someone who's clearly a subscriber, because they knew the channel's email address and they knew my name. And I was a bit upset with the email, and the reason why I was upset with the email was, firstly, they chose to take the opportunity to try and congratulate me, whilst at the same time underhandedly trying to tell me that they didn't like the fact that I'd supported Peter Oxley's auction. And we'll be talking a little bit more about Peter's auction a little bit later. But this person, everyone's got different views. So I don't know whether they'd be very strangely pro-Russian, or a pacifist, or whatever it was. I got an inkling from some of the stuff that was said in the email. But basically said that they liked Peter Oxley, but they didn't like him supporting the auction, because that was supporting Ukraine, and Ukraine are in a war. Well, yeah, they're not in a war of their own creation. They're in a war because they'd been invaded by a country that offered them security guarantees back in the 1990s when they handed over their nuclear weapons. So they've been betrayed by one of their security partners, by one man and his empire building. So to say that in any way that Ukraine is doing something wrong, in my book, is absolute nonsense. If someone invaded this country, I'd stand up and be countered, and that's just what the Ukrainians are doing. And if you're an American, you know what? Last time someone attacked your country, Pearl Harbor, did you stand up and get yourself countered? Absolutely you did. It's no different, right? So I won't have people emailing me and telling me that Ukrainians are wrong to be fighting for their country and for their way of life. So that annoyed me no end. If you've got that view, that's fine. Keep it to yourself. I'm only sharing this. I know it's a modelling channel. I'm only sharing this because it's a precursor to the next really offensive thing that was said in the email. So the next really offensive thing that was said in the email, and I'm saying this because this guy might be watching this video, in which case you know who you are. But I just want to clear things up for people that perhaps don't understand. But this person referred to the fact that I'd referred to the fact that I'm autistic. So I established that I was autistic last year at the age of 53. And I established that I was autistic because it was suggested my eldest daughter was autistic, and she has now been diagnosed as autistic. My youngest daughter is on the pathway to being diagnosed as autistic, but clearly is. Shows in a different way, but she's clearly autistic. So I've also been on the pathway to be diagnosed as autistic, but the system is massively overwhelmed at the moment. So that was a new discovery for me, and you know, autism, neurodiversity, at least a minimum of 20% of the population of the planet have this. It is not, as was suggested in the email to me, an affliction. It's, you know, it's a personality trait, really. Before autism as a difference to people was understood and identified, it was personality. So when I look back at my family tree, my grandfather, autistic, his two brothers and two sisters clearly autistic. When you go a step behind that, you can see that my great aunts clearly autistic from the behaviours that I know of and can see, and then you go back the generation behind that, and you know, autistic. All of these people were very successful in their own way, but you can see this solid foundation of autism running all the way through. And now I know about autism and I understand autism, I can see it in other family members as well, who don't necessarily realise that they're autistic either. So yeah, it's a bit of an interesting topic. It's not an affliction. I didn't pick it up. It's not a disease. It's not something I've caught. I was born this way, okay? And is it a disability? Sometimes. But it's really just defining how I see the world and how I think. So I don't take kindly to it being called an affliction. It's not something I suffer from. It's part of the definition of who I am. So, you know, it's not like catching something that changes your life. Okay? It's only a disability if I allow it to be a disability. So it means that I get anxious about certain things and I get stressed about certain things, and I find some things difficult to do or more challenging than others. And every autistic person is different. There's a famous saying within the autistic community: once you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. And that's because, just like everybody else, everyone's an individual, and autism displays in different ways, and there's not different levels of it, but you can be a functioning autistic, or you can be non-functioning autistic, and there's a whole spectrum in between, which is why it's called being on the spectrum. So yes, I definitely am autistic, and it's why I have certain behaviours that other people don't display. But there are hundreds of thousands of people who are neurodivergent who don't know they are, particularly my generation and older. When you look at the world, 20% of people typically neurodivergent, but then if you're in a train spotting club or coin collecting, stamp collecting, model building, the percentage of neurodivergent people within that community, collective, group, club, whatever it is, will be much, much higher, because typically autistic people, neurodivergent people, like that type of thing because they tend to be quite creative for a start. They like the comfort of detail. So people who are, and to use modern language, nerds, quite often they're deep diving a subject because they find that fascinating. It's some form of neurodivergence that drives that. So you'll probably find someone who's neurodivergent has a lot of routines. So when I think about my grandfather, it's really, really interesting. So my grandfather was born in 1918, and he died he died at the start of the pandemic from COVID at the age of 101. He would have been 102 that year. He died in the April, would have been 102 in the December. And without COVID, I'm fairly sure he'd have got to 103, 104, because he was really, really strong. So he joined the Navy at 15. He had a full military naval career, active service career, and then rejoined the Navy and worked as a Navy recruiter until he retired at the age of 55 in 1977, where he then continued to have a fully functioning life. And you know, the whole village would have turned out for his funeral if they'd been allowed to attend. You know, the local brass band turned up and played the last post. You know, he used to, in his 80s, he used to deliver Meals on Wheels to people younger than him. He would go out for a walk twice a day, pretty much the same time. Loved his routines. He got macular degeneration in later life, and from his sort of mid-80s onwards, his eyesight deteriorated. And I remember saying to him one day, he was making a cup of tea, and I was saying to him, how are you coping with losing your eyesight? He hadn't fully lost it at that point. And he said, well, it's just a change of routine. And everyone always assumed that was the Navy training. But actually, it was his autism. I'm absolutely got no doubt about it, because it was routine. Change the routine. Now, one of his routines when he went shopping was to buy wheat bran that he would put on his porridge, and every time he went shopping he'd buy a bag of wheat bran. And I remember walking into his pantry and there was a shelf full of wheat bran, 2 years worth, and then another shelf probably with a similar amount of jars of marmalade, because he had the same breakfast every morning, routine. So he was a man of routine, and it wasn't Navy routine, because I know people have been in the armed forces who don't have those routines, because they're not neurodivergent. So it's not an infliction, it's just what is comfortable for that person, that way of life, and how they see the world. So, you know, it's not that I can't function. It does make it harder for me to do some things. So I'm travelling soon. I'm going to Italy with the family. We're going to Verona for a week, and we're going to do a little bit of travelling around Italy. That will be very, very difficult for me because I don't like change. I don't like the unknown, and the unknown is a threat, and I don't like threat. So that will be difficult for me, but I know it's going to be difficult for me. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because I want to do it. I want to go to Verona. I want to enjoy Italy. I want to have a family holiday, possibly the last with all 4 of us, because Daisy's getting older, getting her own job and all that sort of stuff. So it's not an affliction. And to say that neurodiversity, autism, ADHD is an affliction is absolutely offensive to the person that has it. So please don't go around using that sort of terminology. You know, I understand that you might not understand, but, you know, it's like me saying, oh, you're not neurodivergent. Really sorry to hear that. How do you cope with your completely disorganised life and never knowing where everything is and being untidy and having a modelling bench with stuff strewn everywhere, so you're always knocking stuff over trying to find it? I mean, you're just being offensive about that person and who they are. So that was really disappointing that someone took the time to write an email to be offensive to me and offensive to Peter Oxley. So please don't send me emails like that. That person has now been blocked, can't send me any more emails. And if they choose to put a comment on here, I will block them on here as well. So yeah, really disappointing. But I wanted to clear that up because my autism is a superpower, and it means I'm really organised. And you know, the reason that you've had I've got a spreadsheet, and you've had videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday religiously, is because I'm autistic, because I need structure. So I have structure, and lots of people enjoy that structure. I wonder why. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get on to some more positive stuff, because there was some really positive stuff happened during the week. So let's look at what happened last week. Well, we're going to start with a continuation of the family stuff. So last week I shared the good news that Daisy's landed her first full-time job. So she's about to do her exams. When she finishes, she's got this job. She'll be overqualified for the role. She knows it, but it's a foot in the door, and it's going in the right direction for her, and it's a perfect fit for her. So I'm over the moon. But what I couldn't say, but I now can, is that my partner Paula, on the same day, on the same Wednesday, also went for an interview. I'll give you a little bit of background. She works at a private school for children with learning needs. So it's a school that the council decides that the child can't work within the normal school provision and needs more attention, and so they put them into the private school. It costs the council a lot of money to do it, but they get things like one-to-one care and what have you, and the child really benefits a lot. And she's worked in that environment. She's worked there for 25 years, and I've known her for 10 of those years, and she's been unhappy for 10 of those years. And the reason is her employer is a completely backwards employer, horrendous employer. I'm not going to mention the name of the employer. It's an American company actually that owns the schooling system, and the way they treat their staff is absolutely disgusting. So to give you an example, when my partner went through the menopause, she was basically threatened with losing a job because she was going through something that all women go through. She was struggling to cope with things like the temperature because she was getting hot flushes because all her hormones are changing. You know, we've all been through it as teenagers. Women have to go through it again. But it's not like when you're a teenager, you get through it and you come out of it. Menopause is a new phase and it stays there. There isn't getting over it. There isn't getting through it. There's getting used to it and being and adapting to it at the best. So Paula goes through the menopause, and to keep her job, she ends up having to change her job to do something she doesn't really want to do, doesn't enjoy as much, forcibly, and take a pay cut, right? Because she's going through the menopause. That's how horrendous this company is, and so many other things. You know, she has a dental appointment or a doctor's appointment, then she has to work that time back. I mean, it's horrendous. She works extra hours pretty much every day, and then when she needs time off for something that's really, really important, it's a problem, and they won't accommodate it, and you've got to make your time back up and all sorts of stuff. They are just horrendous. They're always coming up with reasons why they can't give pay rises, but they're just absolutely horrendous. And they have done her over so many times, and particularly the provision of mental health support is absolutely abysmal. And when you consider that the company is dealing with children that need lots and lots of mental health support, it's disgraceful how they behave. So I was over the moon when on the Friday after that Wednesday, she was offered a job somewhere else. And I can now talk about it because on Monday of this week, she verbally told her manager, and on Tuesday she formally handed her notice in, having received the paperwork from the new employer. So she is leaving. I am over the moon. It's going to benefit her. She's going to be getting a pay rise, which takes her beyond the money she was earning before she took a pay cut. The compromise for her is it's no longer at a school, so she will no longer get the longer school holidays, but it's working for the council, so she gets a better pension. So she's got 10 years of working life left, so she'll have a nice run of pension going into retirement there. So that's a really good thing for her. And oh my God, can you tell the difference with Paula? She is playful, she is happy, she is laughing, she's smiling. She's back to who she was when I first met her, which is a really nice thing for me to see. And I've been pushing her for about 7 years now to change her jobs, and she's looked at it 2 or 3 times. And what happens is she gets to a really bad place. She even had a period of time off with stress, and then they come back and they promise some changes to her, and that happens for 2 or 3 weeks, and then they start reneging on it, and coming up with reasons why they need to go back to type. And Paula goes from thinking, oh, they've made it a change and they're being positive, to then realising they've just duped her again. So I've been banging the drum of leave for about 7 years, so I'm over the moon that she's finally doing it. And so yeah, in June she will start her new job. So that's brilliant, and part of her notice is during the school holidays, so she'll be in Italy and be able to enjoy even less time there. So really nice place for her to be in, and really good for us as a family as well. So that was the big news on that front, and I'm, as you can tell, absolutely made up for her. So that's been going on. So that means that she might need to change her car. because she might have to do some driving to people's homes and things like that in this new job. So I've been looking at my car, because probably buy my car off me. My car's 4 years old. It's done 43,000 miles now. And although I'm not ready to change it, it's at that pivot point where the depreciation means that I'd have to work harder to get back into a new car. So I've been looking at new cars, and because I'm autistic, I've been comparing them all and the pros and the cons. So I've decided what car I'm going to get. I'm just looking, starting price negotiations now. So I'll be playing several garages off against each other. And you know, I normally like to buy on HP and then pay off early, but they get crafty, these car manufacturers. So if I buy it on PCP, which I don't really want to do because you're only paying for half the car, and then you've got to either refinance it or hand it back, and you've got to be keeping your eye on how many miles you do. If I buy it on PCP, the interest rate currently is 2.4%. If I buy it on HP, which I'd prefer to do, I can put a bigger deposit in, because they limit how much your deposit is on a PCP. So if I buy a higher purchase, I can pay for a period of time and own the car. So I don't need to pay it off early. I'm just paying it off. 8.9% APR they're applying to that. So I won't be paying that. So I need to look at my options and play off the garages as well. So there is a garage I've bought from most of my cars from in the last 12 purchases, which have all been Toyotas. But I did look at Lexus, and then I quickly realised it's basically the same Toyota that I'm looking at, and I'm paying for someone to personally hand stitch the seats, so that's not making much difference to me, and the boot was smaller because of how they've arranged things. So I know what car I'm getting, just got to sort the price. So that's been going on this week as well. On the modelling front, last week we've been doing some new things, as you'd expect from last week, and then on Monday we had nothing happen, and that's part of this. I just didn't have time to do it. I didn't put myself under pressure. So what I'd been planning to put out was the Border Models 109 first impressions. So when I get a chance to edit it, I'll put it out. So I don't know what day that'll come out, just when I get around to it. Wednesday, we were going to have a book review, but I decided to put another Sherborne out instead. Otherwise, you wouldn't have got one that week. So we did Sherborne, which was basically spars. Now, in the videos, you'll hear me refer to spars and yards. And I use that term interchangeably. It's not strictly correct, because my understanding, and I'm certainly no expert, my understanding is it depends on what's being rigged on them, whether they're a yard or a spar, is how I remember it. A lot of people use the term fairly interchangeable. So it depends on whether it's square rig or something like that. I don't know. So I use both. So if it's confusing in the videos, I apologise. I'll try and just use spars or something. I think the spar is the item, and some people use yards as meaning the spars as attached to the mast, and the spar is the actual item, and I don't know. It's all a bit confusing, really. You'll just have to forgive me if I chop and change. You know what I mean. It's the little wooden bit that you would hang sails off. So we're pushing on with the Sherborne videos. We're getting towards the end of them now. I suspect you've got 2, maybe 3 at a push videos, and then we're done, because there is not a lot of rigging on Sherborne, to be honest. It's significantly dumbed down because it's an entry-level kit, and great to see people progressing very nicely with their Sherbornes. So we had that on Wednesday, and all things being equal, it's Wednesday as I record this. Friday you should have had the final Elizabethan video go out. So that's now done and complete. Another completed model on the channel, all good. Being fairly productive at this early stage in the year. So I say early stage, we're nearly halfway through. We're nearly halfway through, and you know, I got birthdays coming up. My daughter and Paula both have birthdays in June. So yeah, that's what we got up to on the channel, and I guess that gets us onto the modelling bench and all the fun we were having on there. So let's start with the lady, because the lady Ellen is a bit of a mouthful, so I'm just calling her the lady. Done a little bit with her, not much. We've basically put these patterns on the top. Not officially the week to be working on her. So I'm ready for first planking. Now, I've been toying with how am I going to present this model. And it presents me with a little bit of a challenge, and I'll tell you for why. On the one hand, I want to do a painted version because this is a commercial boat. I've got figures for it, and the one advantage you have with a commercial boat is that unlike a military boat, you can weather it. And that means I can bring out some of my plastic modelling skills and apply them to a wooden model. So we can do streaking dirt, we can do chipping, we can do multi-layers of paint weathering, we can do scuffing and wearing and that sort of stuff. We can do dirt, rust, all of those things we can apply and make this look really well lived in, if you like. But also, of the 4 absolute beginners kits, this is probably the most eligible to just do it purely in wood, no paint, and show off all the beautiful materials that are included in the kit. So the pear wood comes out particularly nicely. So I've had some messing around, you'll remember, with the last build where we looked at what she'd look like under different clear coats, and you can do a little messing around with woods when you show them off natural. So you can use different varnish sheens to highlight different parts. So for example, you might go matte on the deck, but then very subtly satin on some of the fittings just to contrast it and highlight it. It may be you go matte because they're different coloured woods and it doesn't matter. But building a wooden model ship and showing off the wood, you can do things slightly differently than if you're doing it and painting it, in which case you should matte everything anyway. But this is probably the one that I think out of the 4 that will naturally look the best just shown off in wood. It would be the most eye-catching, and the reason is you've got fewer things on here to sort of counteract it. So if I was doing Adder, for example, and said, right, we'll do Adder all natural wood, we'll leave all the photo etching brass, and we'll do it wooden brass, and then you've got tons of 3D printed coronades and what have you, then you've got to be painting a certain element of it, and therefore that painting stands out. Whereas you've not got that on here. Yeah, there are some things you've got to paint. You have got some resin parts on here. You've got the steam winch and stuff like that. They have to be painted. But because you're painting those a colour, it's almost slightly different. But if you get my meaning, if you want to do wooden brass, then really you want the cannons to be brass. and that sort of thing. I mean, obviously you can paint them brass or bronze depending on your period and all of that sort of stuff. There's things you can do to get around it. But yeah, there was part of me who wanted to do this pure wood. So if I did this showing off the natural wood and we did a wood hull, what I was going to do was going to show you a way of presenting the wood so that your steelers and things were not wedges and were more authentic to how it would be done in a boatyard. But also I really want to do the painting and weathering version, and then I got to a point where I'd almost made the decision we were going to do wood on one side and paint the other side, which in my head made sense because, you know, I can show you both. But the you know what, my autism got the better of me, and I was like, yeah, but where do I start and end the painting on the rudder? So I know, bonkers. And I decided that's not what I wanted to do. I've decided I am going to paint this and I am going to weather it because that's fun. I can show some techniques and share some ways of doing things. We're going to paint the figures. I've got some nets to put on and stuff which will complement the figures. We've got the dog to go on. The dog's going to be called Skipper, by the way. And we're just going to have some fun with it. Which will make the build videos a little bit longer. It'll extend them a little bit because it'll go beyond just the building of this. But it gives me the opportunity to show what you can do with a model. And this one is all about going a little bit beyond what's offered in the kit and using that as a foundation to build your own model. So that's the plan. And what I am going to do though is I'm going to show you that technique of improving the look of your second planking, so that if you want to do a clear varnished version, you can. So I'll show you that. It's just that I'll end up painting over it. It's not a difficult process, and it certainly will look better. So yeah. That's what we're going to do with that. We've got these on. I've done one side on camera, the other side off camera, so in my lunch break I can quickly whip one on. So we did the soaking one day, and then the next day I did glue one on in my lunch break and glue the other one on whilst filming it after work. So that's progressed a little bit. We'll be starting the planking soon, a bit probably tomorrow lunchtime. Unless I'm editing this ready for Saturday, possibly. So the other thing we've been working on, we did a little bit on the Junkers, a small amount, but then I decided I wanted to really push Scharnhorst on, and to get some material quickly, I thought what would be a great idea would be to build the main gun batteries. There's 3 of them. They're pretty much repetitive, so I can do a little bit and do the next 2 off camera. I knew that there were some slight differences, but I hadn't taken into account the fact that Trumpeter hadn't picked up on some of those differences. So I thought doing those 3 gun batteries meant I'd get some material really, really quickly. And what I found was that Trumpeter strikes again. And if we take this as the basic gun emplacement, so this is Caesar turret, and this isn't finished because it's got an inaccuracy. But this is the basic turret. So you've got the rangefinder covers each side. I'm replacing the kit barrels with the aluminium turned barrels, which are actually dimensionally more accurate, and they're narrower. The barrel's narrower, and the recoil steps in the correct place. And then we've got the 3D printed resin blast bags, which are okay, but they're all the same. They're all identical, so they just cut and paste the design, which is a bit lazy and a bit of a faux pas for me. And then we've used the MK1 photo etch, which goes beyond the kit photo etch, was easier to install and is a bit thinner, so it adds a bit more finesse to the finished model. So treating that as a model in its own right, it is missing a lump on the top. So that's wrong. So the kit doesn't provide for the lump that goes on the top. Now, the kit is Scharnhorst as sunk, so that's December 1943. I am modelling her March 1943, so the lump should be on there. So that's a faux pas. Now I can show you the lumps because this is turret B, or Bruno. On all the German ships, they're always Anton, Bruno, Caesar, Dora. So it's the same on Bismarck as Tirpitz as Scharnhorst. So I've got lumps on the back rather than the top. That's correct. I've got 2. That's correct. There's only 2 in the kit. I need to make one, so I've got to fabricate one of those. I'm having a go. Had a go casting one from green stuff. It's not quite worked out the way I'd like, so I think I'm going to scratch build one from plastic. So yeah. Subtle differences. You've got the 2 little lumps at the back. You've not got gun barrel casings mounted either side. Otherwise, pretty much the same. So yeah, and it looks nice when it's done. These are all missing their ladders. There should be ladders on each side. They're going on after it's been painted. Painted with a bright yellow top and then dark grey, the rest of it white blast bags. Then we have turret A, Anton, and that's where the most significant issue was. So turret A, you'll see, has got plastic card on the side. That's because it has no rangefinder covers. Now, as launch, she's got rangefinder covers on turret A, but by the time we get to 1943, for some reason that I'm not clear on, I've not read around, they've been removed and blanking plates have been put over where the covers are. These are not included in the kit, so I've had to do modifications and then scratch build replacement covers. And ironically, I used the punch tool that I said was rubbish a couple of weeks ago, and it did a really, really good job of what I needed, all explained in the video. So I needed to do quite a bit. I've had the chisels out and we're sanding and getting the punches out and shaping plastic card. A real drag because Trumpeter didn't do their research properly, and they give you 3 of the same sprue with 3 turrets that are the same, and one of them needs to have blanking plates, which they could have moulded in and it could have been right first time, but wasn't. So I've had to do more work on the gun emplacements, but these are ready for paint now. All 3 of them are done, and I will look a lot more authentic than a lot of the Scharnhorst models I see, where they haven't questioned that and they've put the rangefinder covers on. So I guess in some way the A turret was receiving information from another source rather than having the backup of its own rangefinders. So obviously there was rangefinders information being fed into these turrets, and the rangefinder within the turret was very much a backup. It was more manual, it was a little bit more crude, a little bit slower, but there if you needed it. So that was the progress on Scharnhorst. I hope to be able to start putting some paint down at the back end of this week. Then on Saturday we're gonna flip onto the Junkers and get stuck in with building the Junkers up, which will be nice. So that's where we are with what was happening on the bench. So let's talk about stash ads. Have I done this in the wrong order? I can't remember. So stash ads, I have 2, which is interesting. So, Peter Oxley's auction, auctioning off Ukrainian-made kits to generate funds to help civilian charities within Ukraine. Okay, so I bid £100 for this, which is about 40 quid in the shops. And I did that deliberately because effectively I was making a donation and receiving this in exchange for the donation. And it's factory sealed, has never been opened, so that's a mint kit inside. I've not looked inside it, but somebody has built one of these vehicles in the social group, and I've always thought it's quite an unusual vehicle with its sloping front, so I quite fancied having a go at that. But this comes with the cooks and the field kitchen, which I built a field kitchen before, the Tamiya one. So it'd be nice to revisit that. I've got a little diorama in a box. So I've got a thought process for a wider diorama, which includes a mini big kit of a Panzer IV with engine infield repair. And I think these two sat next to each other could make for quite an interesting diorama. So I was really pleased to get hold of that, get hold of this in the auction. I'd actually bid £100 before the auction started, but I said to Peter, put it in, because if people want to give me a run for the money, that's all the better for you. But I was fairly determined I was going to end up with this, and I think we've got some build options on here as well. So yeah, we've got that. Now Peter also put in the package for me. We talked about this anyway. He did a review of their ICM kit a little while ago that comes with 3 1-700 ships, which are all variations of the same. This is the Mark Graf version, which I've actually got the 1-350 version of the ICM Mark Graf, and I have done a first impressions of it if you go in that playlist. So Peter's sent me this. I can't do a first impressions review of it because I don't have a box for it, and Peter's already done a review of the kits, and the kits are pretty much identical other than minor differences. Now this is a nice kit, 1-700 scale. The detail is nice, and as typical with 1-700 scale though is the limitations of plastic moulding means that some of this is a little bit oversized. So they've put on the anti-torpedo net booms, for example, quite often omitted by ships of this period, by model make manufacturers. They don't put them on, they depict them in the artwork but don't put them on. They put them in, but they're oversized, so you need to replace them with a bit of thin wire. So you've got little challenges like that. The hull portholes, the scuttles are too wide, for example, and look dodgy, so you need to fill them and then re-drill them with a smaller diameter. So you've got little things like that. In many ways 1-700 is best served by the resin manufacturers, but it's nice to have something of earlier in the 20th century being depicted, and it doesn't stand up well against people like Flyhawk because you've not got all the hull detailing, but then that hull detailing is typically over scale at 1-700. So I won't build this because it's too small for me now. So this is going to be offered up to members as a giveaway in the social group. So if you're a member and you're in the social group, this will be one of the giveaways. Now I say that because I've got 7 members who are not in the social group. Just drop me an email and we can get you in, and then you've got the opportunity to be involved in some of these giveaways. Okay, now I have built 1-700 ships before. I'm going to show you, this is the last one that I built, which was about 5, maybe 6 years ago now. This is HMS Barham. And I'm not really sure why I built her, but there you go, you can see, built, weathered, it's got deck laminate and lots of photo etch on. It's 1-700 photo etch. It's It's like constantly poking yourself in the eye and wondering why you're putting yourself through this pain. 1/700, it's just bonkers. It's, you know, it's philosophy photo etch. So when I did political philosophy at university, we talked about the fact that philosophy can take you anywhere, and that some philosophers have discussed how many angels you can fit on a pinhead. Okay, so it's, you know, away with the fairy stuff, and it's a bit like that. It's how much photo etch can we put on a 1/700 model, and there was tons of it, and obviously the things like the railings add to it, but there was all sorts of stuff. Some are a lot of it are used, some are didn't, and it's a bit showing its age now, this, bit worse for wear, and it's lost some bits and pieces and what have you. But I don't know why I built it, because this is probably the most disliked ship in my family, the Barham. So my grandfather served on it very young, as a boy seaman, and he disliked all the routine on there. Interestingly, given what we were talking about earlier, he found the constant routine a little bit challenging, and he preferred serving on destroyers, which he did for most of his career. He was on some cruisers post-war, but he was on destroyers a lot of the time, and he preferred the more relaxed routine of destroyers. Whereas on battleships there's a lot more people, and it's a lot more do it by the numbers, because you don't know everyone, whereas on a small destroyer you get sort of a relationship. Anyway, so my grandfather didn't like the ship, but the family doesn't like the ship because my grandfather's younger brother, the middle of the three brothers, he was on HMS Duchess when Barham and the Duchess collided in fog in Scottish waters in 1940. So the HMS Duchess was overturned, and she remained capsized for some time before finally sinking. Now, my grandfather's brother at the age of 19 drowned. He was in the engine room. So he was trapped in that engine room upside down for quite some time before the boat sunk. So he knew what was going on. And it's a horrific death at the age of 19. Absolutely horrific thing to be happening. They could hear them knocking on the hull. They know that they were alive before the ship actually sank. And as a result of that incident, all naval ships have escape hatches in the hull. There was an inquiry, and that was the positive thing that came out. But we lost a member of the family, you know, to an incident in fog. Both the ships were zigzagging. They collided. You know, the Duchess had no chance against the Barham, and she was overturned. And you know, in December in Scottish waters, I think Peter was probably thinking he was in the best place in the ship, in the engine room, nice and warm. You know, best place to be, and then suddenly it's the worst place to be. So a real shame. So not a well-loved ship in the family. So I can't remember why I chose to build it, but I did, and I won't be building any other 1/700 kit. So I think I've got rid of all of them now, but I won't be building this one either. So that was my stash ads. I did get one or two bits of wooden ship kits I got, but that all went wrong, and I'll tell you about that maybe another week. So I think that's probably it for this week. I'm going to show you the garden next week. The reason being is I've got all my washing out and you've got big shadows and stuff everywhere. I will film it one day when there's no washing out and the sun's out, and then we can plot that into next week's. So lots going on. This week coming is going to be all about the German aeroplane. I will try and do a little bit of the lady as well. Then the following week, I'm likely to be taking a break from the channel for a week. And then when I come back, I will talk all about that. But you may find that next week's table talk is the last one. And then the next one would be, there'll be a week's gap before you get another one. Yeah, I'm around next Wednesday, but then I'm not. And we'll talk all about that when I am back. So there's a week's break coming up from the channel, and I'll explain why that is afterwards. So next week will probably be the last table talk for a week, and there'll be a week's break, and then it'll come back. So yeah, I think that is it for now. So I will show you the progress next week. We're getting stuck back into the plastic, which is really good. The changes to the channel have already started taking effect. I have made a change to membership as well, so there's now 2 levels in the membership. Just be aware that the entry level minimum payment of now 99p a month doesn't get you access to the social group. So if you want to support the channel and you're not that fussed about being in the social group, you can just donate 99p a month, and in exchange I will prioritize answering your comments under any of my videos. So there you go. Until the next time, you enjoy your modeling, stay safe, have fun, enjoy the sunshine while we've got it, and until next week, bye for now.